WorldCom Edu. Elite Children's Classics.
The Ugly Duckling. Chapter 1. The Ugly Duckling is Born. The sun shone brightly in the blue sky. The cornfields were yellow. The meadows were green. The storks walked about on their long legs. It was summer in the countryside. In these peaceful surroundings, there was an old farm. Near the farm, there was a canal. On this farm, there lived a duck. She never left her nest because she was sitting on her eggs. She had been sitting on them for a very long time. At last, one eggshell broke open, and a little bird put out his head. Soon, the other eggshells broke open too, and other little birds put out their heads. Peep, peep, the little birds cried. Soon, they began running about the nest. "How big the world is," the duckling said. Naturally, they thought the world was big because they had spent so many days in their small eggshells. Then the mother duck said, "Oh, this is not the whole world. The world is much bigger. Near this nest, there is a canal. Beyond the canal, there are broad fields. And beyond the fields, there are big forests." Then the mother duck remembered that there was one more egg in the nest. It was a large egg, and it still remained unhatched. An old duck came for a visit. "Well, I see your eggs have hatched," she said, as she looked at the ducklings running about the mother. "Not all," said the mother duck. "There is one more left." "It's taking a long time," said the old duck. Then she continued, "Let me take a look at the egg that has not yet hatched." The mother duck showed the unhatched egg to the visitor. The old duck looked at it and said, "Oh, this is such a big egg. I think it's a turkey's egg." Then she continued, "I was cheated once. I was made to sit on a turkey's eggs. When they hatched, I tried to teach the chicks how to swim, but they wouldn't learn. They wouldn't go into the water at all. Leave that big egg there. I'm sure it's a turkey's egg. You'd better take your ducklings to the canal and teach them how to swim." To this, the mother duck answered, "I think I'll sit on it just a little longer." "Well, do as you please," said the old duck. Then she went away. At last, the big eggshell broke open. "Peep, peep," said the newly hatched bird. He was large, gray, and very ugly. The mother duck looked at the ugly duckling and said, "How big he is! And he looks so different from the others. I wonder if he is really a turkey chick. If he is a turkey chick, he won't be able to swim." Well, I'll find out soon. The next day, the mother duck went to the canal near the nest. The ducklings followed her. The ugly duckling followed her too. Then the mother duck jumped into the water. "Quack, quack," she said. "Quack, quack," answered the young ducks. Then, one by one, they jumped into the water. Last of all, the ugly duckling jumped in too. The mother duck saw the ugly duckling jump into the water and looked pleased. "He's not a turkey chick," she said to herself. Then she started swimming toward the poultry yard near the canal. The young ducks followed her. The ugly duckling followed her too. When the mother duck came to the poultry yard, she got out of the water. All the young ducks got out of the water too. Then the mother duck said, "Now I will take you into a new world. I will introduce you to the other ducks. Stay close by my side. You must be careful not to be stepped on by the other ducks. They are so big, and you are so small. You must also be careful not to get near the cats. They will catch you and eat you up." The mother duck then entered the poultry yard. All the young ducks followed her. There was a great deal of noise in the poultry yard. 2 ducks were fighting to get an eel's head. Then a cat appeared, took the eel's head from the 2 ducks, and ran off with it in his mouth. "That's how things go in this world," said the mother duck to the young ducks. "In this world, you must be strong. Then there is one more thing you must learn. You must learn to be polite. Now, do you see that old duck over there? She is the most important duck in this poultry yard. When you meet her, you must bow. Do you understand?" "Quack, quack," answered all the young ducks. The ducks that lived in the poultry yard now gathered around the mother duck. The old duck was among them. They had come to see the young ducks. The young ducks bowed to the other ducks. But the ducks did not seem to be very pleased to see the young ducks. "This poultry yard is very crowded already," said one duck. "Now it will be more crowded than before, with all these new ducks." Then another duck noticed the ugly duckling and said, "Look at that duckling! How ugly he is!" The duck then walked up to the ugly duckling and bit him on the neck. Oh, how it hurt! The mother duck said to the duck that had bitten the ugly duckling, "Leave my child alone. He is not doing you any harm." "I know," said the mean duck, "but he's so big and ugly. I don't like him at all." "That child is ugly, as everybody says," said the mother duck, "but he has a good disposition. He can swim well, too. If he is big, that's because he was in the egg so long. I'm sure when he grows up, he'll be a fine bird." The mother bird really believed what she said. But none of the other ducks believed her words. They all said he was ugly, bit him, and pushed him about. The ugly duckling was so frightened that he didn't know where he should stand or walk. That was how the first day in the poultry yard went by for the ugly duckling. Then came the second day. It was even worse than the first. Not only the other ducks, but his own brothers and sisters began to bite and push him about. One of his brothers said to him, "I wish the cat would catch you. Then we wouldn't have to look at you anymore." Even his own mother said to him, "I wish you would go away somewhere." The days went by. Every day, the ugly duckling was treated in this cruel manner. At last, he said to himself, "Everybody hates me because I am so ugly. I will run away." Chapter 2. The Ugly Duckling Runs Away. The ugly duckling spread his small wings and flew over the fence around the poultry yard. He had never been outside the poultry yard before, so everything was new to him. He walked on and finally came to a great moor. Many wild ducks lived in this moor. The ugly duckling hoped that the wild ducks would not bite and push him about as the ducks in the poultry yard had done. There were tall reeds growing on the shores of the moor. The ugly duckling spent the night among the reeds. The next morning, the wild ducks found the ugly duckling. They gathered around him and said, "Who are you?" The ugly duckling was too frightened to answer. He only looked at the wild ducks and bowed as politely as he could. "You are so ugly," said the wild ducks, "but we won't mind it as long as you don't marry one of us." Of course, the ugly duckling was not thinking of marrying any of the wild ducks. He was glad that they allowed him to live among the reeds and drink the water in the moor. A few days later, some wild geese came to the moor. These birds were very unfriendly. They told the ugly duckling that they had never seen any bird so ugly and bit him and pushed him about. The ugly duckling felt very sad to be treated in such a manner by the wild geese. Just then, there was the sound of guns. Some hunters were firing their guns at the wild geese. The ugly duckling had never heard the sound of a gun before. He hardly knew what was going on. He looked up and saw a large number of wild geese flying over the moor. Suddenly, 2 shots were heard. 2 wild geese fell from the sky and splashed into the moor below. The water became red with blood where they fell. Then another gun was fired, and another goose splashed into the water. Again, the water became red with blood where he fell. Then some hunting dogs appeared. They jumped into the water and swam to the spot where the wild geese had fallen. They caught the dead geese in their mouths and brought them back to the shore. There, the hunters were waiting for them. The ugly duckling had never been so frightened before. This was the first time that he had seen birds killed. It was a terrible experience for him. He lay quietly among the reeds. The hunters kept firing their guns. Many more wild geese were killed. Each time a goose fell into the moor, the dogs jumped into the water and brought the dead bird to the hunters. The hunt lasted all day. The ugly duckling had no idea how many geese were killed. At last, evening came, and the sound of the guns stopped. Silence came back to the moor. The ugly duckling had been hiding among the reeds all day. He had not moved at all. He had been too frightened to move. When the hunters with their dogs left the moor at last, the ugly duckling decided to leave the moor and go to a safer place. He left the moor and ran on and on. He came to a field. He didn't stop. He kept running. He came to a meadow. He didn't stop there either, but kept on running. Then there was a storm. The wind blew and the rain fell, but the ugly duckling ran on. At last, when it was almost night, he came to a peasant's house. It was a very small and poor-looking house. The ugly duckling noticed that the door of the peasant's house was slightly open. The wind was blowing hard, and the rain was falling heavily. So he slipped in through the opening. In the house, there lived a woman with a cat and a hen. When she stroked the cat's back, it purred. As for the hen, she laid good eggs. All night, the ugly duckling remained unnoticed in the corner. He was grateful to be out of the storm. In the morning, the cat and the hen found the ugly duckling. They made a big noise, and the woman woke up. "What's the matter?" she said, and looked all around. She could not see so well because it was very early and was still somewhat dark in the house. When she saw the ugly duckling, she thought he was a big duck, and she said to her two pets, "Oh, how lucky we are! A big duck has come to us. Now we will have duck eggs." The woman decided to let the ugly duckling stay in her house. Then the hen said to the ugly duckling, "Can you lay eggs?" The ugly duckling answered, "No, I can't." "Then you are no good," said the hen. Then the cat said to the ugly duckling, "Can you purr?" The ugly duckling answered, "No, I can't." "Then you are no good," said the cat. The hen and the cat looked at the ugly duckling with scorn. The ugly duckling felt sad and sat in a corner in silence. Presently, the sun rose. The storm was over. The sky was blue, and the sunshine was warm. The ugly duckling suddenly wanted to swim. "May I go out and swim?" said the ugly duckling to the cat and the hen. They answered, "We don't care what you do." So the ugly duckling left the woman's house. He walked for a while and came to a pond. He began swimming in the water. The water felt very nice. As he swam, he forgot how badly he had been treated by everybody because of his ugliness. He decided he would not go back to the woman's house. He did not want to live with anyone. The ugly duckling lived all by himself near the pond. By and by, autumn came. The leaves on the trees turned yellow. When the wind blew, they fluttered to the ground. Every day, it grew colder and colder. Chapter 3. The Ugly Duckling and the Swans. One evening, the ugly duckling saw a flock of the most beautiful birds he had ever seen. They had long necks, and their feathers were as white as snow. They swam gracefully on the pond. They were swans. The swans did not stay long. They soon flew away to warmer countries in the south. The ugly duckling wished he could be as graceful as the swans. He also wished he could fly away with them to some faraway country where he would not be disliked by everyone because of his ugliness. But he knew that was impossible. He was still too young, and his wings were not strong enough to fly to any faraway place. Then winter came. How cold it was! The ugly duckling had to keep moving in the water all the time, because if he stopped moving, the water would freeze and he would be caught in the ice. One night it was unusually cold. The pond was frozen over, and the ugly duckling was caught in the ice. At first, he flapped his wings weakly, but soon the ice held him fast. He stopped trying to move. The ugly duckling would surely have frozen to death, but fortunately, early the next morning, a peasant came by. He saw the poor bird freezing in the ice. The peasant took off his wooden shoe. With it, he broke the ice around the bird. At last, he picked up the bird in his arms and took him home. It was warm in the peasant's house, and the ugly duckling could move his feet and wings again. Then the man's children wanted to play with the bird. But the ugly duckling had been treated so badly by everyone that he thought the children were going to hurt him. so he tried to fly away. As he did so, he upset the milk pan. The milk spilled all over the floor. When the farmer's wife saw this, she became very angry. She raised a pair of fire tongs and tried to hit the bird with them. Fortunately, the door was open. The bird flew out of the house and escaped into the garden. The ugly duckling went back to the pond. He was very miserable. He often wished he were dead. Many days went by. At last, the sun began to shine more brightly. The wind grew less cold. Spring had come again. One day, the ugly duckling was suddenly awakened by the flapping of wings. He opened his eyes, and again he saw the graceful white birds. They had come back from the south. He looked at the beautiful birds and thought, "How I wish I were like them! But that is impossible. I am just an ugly duckling. I am sure if I went near those beautiful birds, they would kill me. But I think it would be better to be killed by those birds than to be bitten and pushed about and hated by everybody." Then the ugly duckling got up and swam out to where the beautiful snow-white swans were. He was sure the swans would see him and kill him because he was so ugly. Just then, the ugly duckling looked into the clear water. To his surprise, he saw his own reflection in the water. What he saw was not a gray, ugly duckling, but a beautiful young swan with feathers as white as snow. All the big white swans welcomed him warmly. Later, some children came with bread in their hands. They tore the bread into small pieces and threw them into the water. The swans swam near the children, and with their long, graceful necks, picked up the pieces of bread floating on the water. Then the youngest of the children noticed the young swan and cried, "Oh, look, there's a new swan." The other children looked, and they too shouted, "A new swan has come! Oh, isn't he beautiful?" All the children clapped their hands for joy and said, "The young swan is the most beautiful of all. He's so young and so handsome." The young swan was very happy, but said to himself, "I must not be proud. I must never forget how I suffered when I was an ugly duckling."